Good evening and welcome to this meeting of the Planning Application Committee. I'm Councillor Gerard Hargreaves and I'm one of the Vice Chairs of the committee, and I will be chairing our meeting this evening. To my right are my fellow councillors, 4 fellow councillors, and together we will be listening to the applications and making the decisions on them. To my left are council officers who will be presenting the cases and answering questions on them. We have planning officers, and down here we have planning lawyers and the governance team taking the minutes. We have some applications tonight that have speakers, so I will just go through the running order. I plan to take the cases with speakers first and then move on to the cases without speakers. So the running order for this evening will be, we will start with Kelso Place, and then Kings Road, then Pennywern Road, Earls Court Road, the Old Dance Studio, and then over the page we'll go for Scarsdale Villas and All Saints Catholic Church. So that will be the running order for this evening. Before we actually get into the applications, we have a couple of bits of admin to do. Are there any apologies for absence? No. Any declarations of interest? Mr. Lane.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I have a declaration in relation to agenda item N32. I have objected to that application, so I would like to recuse myself from the Planning Committee for the duration of that.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Likewise, I will need to recuse myself from agenda item S25 as I was involved in some discussions related to that case.
Thank you. Any other declarations? So we have some minutes from the previous meetings to go through. We have the minutes from the 24th of October. Can I take those as a true record and sign them? Yes. Thank you. We have minutes from the 5th of December. Can I take those as a true record and sign them? Thank you. And finally, we have minutes from the 13th of February. Can I take those as a true record and sign them? Thank you. Thank you. So we now come to our first application, which is Kelso Place. So who's going to present that? Thank you.
If I may, Chairman, recuse myself.
You may indeed. Thank you. So, Kelso Place, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Planning permission is sought here for a new replacement side wing, an infill extension, facade changes, a roof extension, a brick enclosure for some condensers and some cycle racks. Turning to the slides. Bear with me one moment. Here we are. Apologies for that. Turning to the slides, Albert House at number 27 Kelso Place is on the eastern side of the street and is sited within the Dever Conservation Area. There's a long established office use on the site. It's an aerial image of the site showing that they've got an existing undercroft leading to a service yard at the rear. It's also quite a sensitive location with residential neighbours adjacent and nearby. It's an attractive and positive building, but with an incongruous side wing extension as explained in the report. So turning to the plans, at ground floor level, we can see the proposed plant reference, the structure to the rear on the side of the courtyard area. There is relevant planning history to draw your attention to in the officer report again, a refusal for air conditioning in a similar position but with a different design and finish. At second floor level, you can see where the extension is proposed and the additional floor space of 44 square metres in this location. Turning to the elevations, this is the existing, so relating to that photograph you saw earlier, and the proposed, so a traditional design, appearance and finish. Officers have given weight to that in their assessment of the case. And then turning to the sections, this is an existing section and a proposed, and this is helpful just to see that existing undercroft and the position of the plant that's proposed. Officers are recommending approval for the application, and that concludes my presentation. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. And as I say, we do have some speakers. So for the objectors, we have Councillor Lane as the ward councillor, and then 2 speakers who wish to share the 3 minutes. Councillor Lane, are you going to go first?
Yes, Chairman.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. First, I would draw your particular attention to the objection made by Michael Bark of Rara. As the chairman of the local residents association, you should afford his objection significant weight. As to my objections, the local plan policy CT1 subparagraph B says that, quote, it must be demonstrated that development will not result in any material increase in traffic congestion or on-street parking pressure. The word any means that even if the development results in just a small material increase in traffic or parking pressure, you must reject it under CT1. We have 93 photos of the applicant's vans and lorries, pavement parking and parking in the middle of the road so that residents' cars cannot exit the cul-de-sac. Residents are trapped in the cul-de-sac, cannot leave to pick up their children, to leave for hospital appointments. It also means that emergency services vehicles like fire engines are often totally blocked from entering the cul-de-sac. Now, why does this matter in the context of the application? It's an application for compressors in a courtyard, an extra office space. Well, because the compressors and the Sheffield stand will be sited in the courtyard, it makes the small amount of space in the courtyard for parking and manoeuvring even smaller. The addition of the compressor units will reduce the usable space by more than a quarter, which means more of the applicant's vans and lorries will end up parking on the road. Additionally, the courtyard is identified as a fire escape route, and an intensifying of its use could lead to the prevention of safe exit in the event of a fire, contrary to section D12, subparagraph 4 of the London Plan. I know I don't need to remind this council about the importance of fire safety, so please err on the side of caution tonight and consider your decision carefully. Additionally, under section D12, subparagraph 6 of the local plan, it's important that emergency vehicles like fire engines can enter the road. Increased parking pressure in the middle of the road could prevent this.
I'm going to have to bring you to an end. 1 sentence, please.
Finally, you're well within your powers under CT1 to refuse this application. I'd urge you to do so.
Thank you. Now, the next 2 speakers, I understand that Joel Jennison is not here. I can use my discretion to replace the speaker, so I understand that somebody else is going to speak in her place. So between the 2 of you, you have 3 minutes. Okay. Just introduce yourself, then we'll have your name, sir, please. Okay.
Good evening, councillors. My name is Alban Cassidy and I'm a Chartered Town Planner. I am acting on behalf of Mr and Mrs Jennison of 26 Kelso Place, the immediate neighbours to this application site, who have a unique view into the activities in the courtyard. The basis for their objection is that the permission, if granted, would have a significant detrimental impact upon their residential amenity and well-being. The company that has made the application, Atelier de France, consists actually of various other companies, all of whom operate from the site. The number of vehicles that come and go has been demonstrated by the photographs that have been submitted to you. And in this quiet residential cul-de-sac causes great problems every single day. Just last year, an application was retrospectively submitted for the installation of 3 air conditioning units. The application was rejected, notwithstanding officers' support. Just because this has now been tagged on to a larger application doesn't in any way make it more acceptable just by putting a green roof on it. The use is described as offices, but we've already got a proposal for a sample room to be added, and there is other storage going on, such as scaffolding within the yard on the photographs you have seen. There are also existing breaches of planning control with the removal of obscure glazing, which was conditioned in 2001, and the provision of ill-serving louvres, which don't protect my client's amenity. But the key point is that this development seeks to add additional floor space whilst reducing the size of the internal courtyard with the addition of compressor units and cycle storage. There is a proposed additional floor space of 44 square metres, but that doesn't tell the full story because there's also the roof raising above the meeting room, which creates further space that's going to be used as well. Furthermore, by moving the compressors into the yard, you then create a new sample room, further increasing the floor space. So it's far more than the 44 square metres that's perhaps set out in the documentation. So overall, this will result in more people, more movement, more vehicles, and will fundamentally harm the residential amenity of my clients. Just putting a green roof on a condenser doesn't address all their concerns, and there is also lots of technical queries about how rainwater will be dealt with, how it relates to their party wall. I'll now move to Mr. Dennison.
Thank you. The photos we've submitted clearly show that 27 Kelso Place is incompatible with the volume of goods vehicles currently servicing the site. By comparison, there's a modern cul-de-sac right next to my office off of German Street, which shows that a cul-de-sac with proper goods vehicle accommodation and a security desk manning it is easily able to accommodate vehicles. 27 Kelso Place is physically unable to do that. Councillor Lane has pointed out that these activities not only inconvenience us and all residents on the street, but they also endanger us. I would conclude by saying ADF must face the fact that its activities are incompatible with its location in Kelso Place and draw the appropriate conclusion.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much indeed. Can I now then ask Mr. Gawor or Mr. Hunter, who's going to speak for the applicant, please? Are you both going to speak?
Yes, we're both going to speak. I'll speak first. Good evening. I'm Voy Gawor. I'm the architect and agent. The proposal seeks to enhance and make improvements to the front elevation of 27 Kelso Place, and in doing so make use of the additional space within the new roof. The brick-faced and green roof enclosure to the AC condensers responds directly to the comments that contributed to the previous reason for refusal. Whilst we acknowledge the new door to the sample room has a more contemporary treatment, it matches with the existing windows to the reception opposite and is set back from the front elevation within the courtyard. Each of the elements of the proposal are sympathetic to the character and design of the existing building and make a positive contribution to the De Vere Conservation Area. The noise report and daylight and sunlight survey showed that proposals would continue to ensure good living conditions for the neighbours. And in accordance with the Council's recommendation, the proposal has an acceptable impact on the highway network, further improvements to which Xavier will go on to explain next. I'll now hand you over to Xavier Hunter, who's representing the applicant ADF.
Good evening, Chair. Good evening, Committee. I'd like to thank you, first of all, for welcoming us here. I'd like to make 2 points on the back of what Roy has just advised, and that is to say that since we moved in to the property at 27 Kelso Place, we have looked at putting in a planning application to improve the quality of the working area for our staff. We have engaged considerably with the neighbours over, beg your pardon, I do apologise. We have engaged over the years with our neighbours in a very friendly manner, and we have made arrangements to listen to their complaints over these period of time. Which leads me to the last point, which has been, I guess, the most emphasized element in this whole debate, which is the deliveries. We've actually listened very carefully to what our neighbours have said and have taken action in respect of that by removing one of the areas where we have staff carrying out a number of samples, preparing samples, etc., and they will be moving to a warehouse out in Acton. This will allow, will considerably reduce the number of vehicles that are coming into this so-called cul-de-sac. And trust this will be one of the positive notes taken on board for our planning application. We look forward to hearing from a positive outcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we now have an opportunity for the committee to ask questions of the speakers. Committee members, can you make sure you direct your question to a specific speaker, please? Who would like to go first? Thank you. Councillor Retty.
Thank you, Chairman. Question to the objector, Councillor Lane and his group of objectors. The point about CT1, I know it's a disruption thing during the construction phase, but obviously there's some mechanism where we could control that through CTMP and other means. Is your main concern about the CT1 policy only during the construction, or is it a permanent thing that you anticipate that could happen? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. It's certainly not in relation to the construction. As you can see from these photos, during the operation of the site, so not the construction, there are vans parked in the middle of the road. This is the case now. With the installation of air conditioning units reducing the courtyard space by a quarter, it means there'll be less space on the site for vans to park. That means even more vans are going to park in the middle of the road, blocking residents from getting out and blocking any vehicles from getting in. It's clearly contrary to policy CT1. It's why that policy was put in place in the local plan to stop things like this. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Councillor. Just to follow up on that one, I would like the applicant to respond to Councillor Lane's proposition, I would say. And can I have that photo on the screen, please, if I can have that specific?
The photographs are in your report pack.
All right, no problem. Thanks. Yeah, could someone answer for? Thank you.
Excuse me, but if you'd like, I have copies of the photographs here, which I'd be happy to... May I?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, okay, sorry.
The shape of the courtyard, if you look on the plan, is an L shape. That sort of L side of it, where we're proposing to put the condensers, isn't used for parking. You can't turn a car around in that point. Historically, the deliveries, as you'll see in the delegated report, which were witnessed by the highways officer and the planning officer who came to meet us on site, would go into the undercroft, into the courtyard, make the delivery and then come back out. Sometimes, obviously, if there's more than one delivery, then there's been a bit of congestion on the road. But that's the way it's used. Is that there isn't a stream of delivery vans parking in that space. It's just not possible to do that. You can see on the plan if you look on that.
I'm afraid you've answered that. Can you turn your microphone off, please, sir?
Oh.
Could I just follow up on that with the applicant, please? I mean, these photographs of the traffic are pretty horrendous. I know that street, and why we got cars parked on the pavements, we've got cars parked in the middle of the road. What this tells me is you can't manage the traffic now, let alone with a bigger site. I mean, this is horrendous. If I lived here, I'd be mortified. Now, you're going to tell me this was one point in time, but why have you got cars parked all over the pavements? I mean, this is horrendous.
Yes, Chair. There are moments in time where those pictures have been taken. We do have 2 parking spaces on the pavement which are allocated for for 2 people in the business, and the courtyard, there's only 2 spaces available for that. And that's what has been, over the 4 years, and especially during COVID, used. We can also demonstrate that there are days where there's no cars and there's no deliveries, but that I'll leave for your discretion to take on board. And yes, and I do appreciate, not all the vans are ours. We have...
Say that again, can you come...
I do apologize. Not all the vans are ours. They are deliveries to other companies and other houses in the street.
Well, questions for the speakers, please. Yes, Councillor Ali.
Thank you, Chair. Likewise, I'm thinking about the emergency, and if there was any emergency support or fire exit, and we know the problems of traffic, I share with similar views with the Chair and Councillor Ratti. But my question is drainage. We had flooding in the borough lately, as you may well aware of, and my question is to the applicant. What has been done to make sure that the drainage and the water in the area cannot affect the basement, the other areas? So what steps have been taken to make sure if there is anything that has been done for drainage related due to the flooding that we had for the last 2 decades?
So is this in relationship to the proposal or just generally?
To the proposal.
So we're not aware of a basement near to our site because it's the site's on top of the district line, so there wouldn't be a basement. The proposal seeks to sink the condenser units down into the ground by about 0.5 metre, which that space itself would be tanked and connected to the existing drainage system. The green roof itself would obviously slow the course of water in that zone. But obviously that's part of the proposal. Nothing previous to that has been done.
The reason I ask this question, because when you looked at it, we had issues with the drainage, not specifically this property you're referring to now in the basement. Obviously, this is not a basement, but we had some issues and the drainage issue. So I'm referring to back again. Was it anything to be done? Have you consulted with the neighbours? And for example, if there's a drainage required or fire emergency has to come in or flooded area, again, it goes back to the transport issue. It's all connected.
Sorry, I don't understand the connection of flooding and our proposal.
The walls, residents have actually inquired about it. It's specifically may not be connected to this, but residents have inquired about the drainage area.
Yeah, there's no proposals to change the hard standing area of the courtyard. I'm sorry, I don't understand the.
Thank you. Can we just clarify? One of the applicants said referred to the road as a so-called cul-de-sac. It is a cul-de-sac, isn't it?
Correct. It is a correct. It is a cul-de-sac. I was referring to our parking space.
So you mean the courtyard?
Into the courtyard, yes.
Just on the follow-up about the cul-de-sac. So that 27, do you know the occupancy of 27? Is it just your premises or?
I beg your pardon? Yes, it is just our premises. So under the label Atelier de France, correct.
So that's everything is yours.
Correct.
So whatever comes inside that, what do you call it? Inside the facade is all yours. The
correct. It belongs to us. It was acquired in 2019, and we haven't changed anything in the business within the space of that business.
So the 2 cars parked just outside that arch belongs to you?
Solely to us, yes.
Just 2, because I can see 3 parking spaces, 1 on the left, 2 on the right. Is the right one yours? Or
only the 2 on the right-hand side to the building is ours, and what's in the courtyard.
All right, thank you.
just to pursue a little bit the traffic again, you mentioned that you're obtaining another property elsewhere, and it will reduce the amount of traffic coming to this property in Kelso Place. Can you give us an estimation of, is that by 5%, 10%? What do you expect the reduction in traffic to be as a result of your new place?
We haven't actually done an evaluation, but since we will not be having any deliveries of products to be able to make the samples as such, these will be done in the warehouse. Those deliveries will no longer exist. The deliveries for certain tools which did occur at one time will no longer exist. So I'm not going to put a figure on it as such, but they will be considerably reduced.
Thank you. Any more questions of the speakers? Right, we now have an opportunity to ask questions of the officers. Who would like to ask a question of the officers, please? Councillor Retty.
Thank you, Chairman. Officers, and so is that Fiona? Hi, Fiona. So you heard from the objectors and applicants about CT1. First thing, can we enforce, I wouldn't say enforce, but link that to CTMP, my first question. The second question is, obviously I don't think there's a limit that we can restrict the parking as such, but what's the mitigation if we were to approve? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Oretti. We have got a condition that we've recommended. It's the last one on the list, number 13, relating to the delivery area. So requesting that that is kept free of obstruction at all times. So it's difficult because any conditions we attach have to be relevant to this proposal. So it can't right the mistakes that may have been done in the past. In terms of the use. So it has to be relevant to this proposal. So that's as far as we think we can go. Your question with regard to the CTMP, that would relate to the construction phase. That could definitely be added by members if they thought it was necessary.
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry, it's a bit. So technically, if during the construction or during the out of construction phase, if they're blocking their own way, I don't think it's irrelevant for the residents unless they're blocking the highway. Is something that we need to worry about. Am I correct in thinking?
We've come to the conclusion that that condition's necessary because if they were, say, continuing to store materials within that courtyard, it would take up valuable off-street servicing space. So that's why we've put that condition on. If there was an actual block to the main highway, there's other legislation outside of planning that would deal with that.
Is that the transport colleagues who would?
Yes, so there's enforcement officers that deal with unauthorised parking and things like that separately from planning.
Right, thank you.
Could I just ask a question, please? Condition 13, which is about delivery vehicles. I guess in a way it's your last question, your last answer, isn't it? How is that going to be enforced?
I definitely think it's enforceable because if at a point in time an enforcement officer went down there and materials were being stored on site, we would have the ability to serve a breach of condition notice, which is sort of more straightforward procedurally than an enforcement notice. So we would be able to do that, and it's quite successful having a condition on there that we have quick action we could take against it. So people are usually quite receptive to our enforcement officers when they've got a condition in place.
Thank you. And can you address, please, the issue of size? The objectors are talking about a significant increase in size. The applicants are talking about a relatively modest increase in size. Can you just clarify the position on that, please?
Our conclusion is that the increase in floor space is acceptable. I definitely take the point from the speakers that the plant moving out into the courtyard then frees up space for samples. I do take that point, but we're looking at the increase in floor space overall. How they use the space, how they divide it up is quite, is beyond our control. So if they wanted to get rid of all plant and have more people accommodated on site, and that's something we couldn't control. So we're just looking at the impact of the additional floor space created, and that's what we can condition, that's what we can consider. And overall, officers in consultation with our transport colleagues have concluded it's acceptable. I take the point again about CT1 and any conflicts with that. Our conclusion is it is acceptable, and there's different parts of the development plan that pull in different ways. So it's important that you weigh up all of those together when reaching that conclusion. But CT1, traffic and intensification is definitely the key issue in this case for me.
Thank you. Any more questions from members? Could I just ask your opinion on the comments we've heard about the extractor fans moving to the courtyard and therefore that reducing the amount of space there is for parking? I mean, traffic is a key thing here, isn't it? And we need to be clear before we can make a decision.
Yeah, I think that is a key issue again. I would just remind members that there was a recent refusal of plant equipment in that courtyard. So that was in May 2023, and it was only refused on the visual appearance of the air conditioning unit. So it was the size and siting and design. There wasn't any reference to the loss of parking space or the reduction of that undercroft. So there wasn't a reason for refusal on that point. So I would say that I'd be concerned if a reason for refusal was added, because at that point I would give more weight to the recent decision. So I think the increase in the overall floor space is probably the critical issue for you rather than the loss of the courtyard space.
Thank you. Councillor Retty?
So, just to follow up, I think I sat on the last planning. So the increase in that, I know one of the comments made by the objectors, if there's an increase in that floor space, that occupies the existing parking space. But I believe, based on the clarification from the applicant, the flow of the parking wouldn't be impacted.
So the previous application was for air conditioning in the same position as what it is shown now. I'll bring it up on the drawings again for you, because I think this is important. So you can see on this ground floor plan, this is the access and the undercroft area that leads to this courtyard area at the rear. And what they're proposing is this structure here along that boundary wall. Now, it's not identical in terms of its appearance, its size, its sizing, not identical, but there was a structure in this position that was recently refused, but it was only refused on its visual impact. So there was no reason for refusal talking about reducing this courtyard area. So I'd be reluctant to add any reason for refusal on that point. And then importantly, in the officer report, in 6.28, we've talked about the reduction in width and the fact that it's constrained in size, and it's very difficult for delivery vehicles to actually turn in that courtyard and come out. They have to already reverse in. So it's a difficult move as existing, but that doesn't need planning permission.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any more questions? I think then we're in a position now to go and make a decision on this. We've heard some very strong objections tonight. There are 7 supporters, and those comments are in the pack. And the recommendation is to the committee to grant planning permission. Sorry, just before we go to that, you mentioned the bit about a CTMP. Do you want to just elaborate on that, please?
Members could choose to add a condition for a construction traffic management plan. It was just after Councillor Retty's question, just to manage the actual construction of this build. And I think that's more than reasonable given the discussions you've had.
So if this was to be granted, and it's an if, would we like to see a CTMP as part of it? Councillor Retty, do you wish to propose that? Does the committee wish to second on that? Agreed. Those in favour? Okay. Are you happy with that? You've got the wording for that. It's a standard CTMP, is it? Yeah. Okay. So now we can come to a vote, please. Recommended with the additional condition, the committee grants planning permission with the conditions listed in section 9 of this report. All those in favour? Those against? That is carried. Thank you very much. We now move on to 61 Kings Road. Who is going to present that?
That will be myself, Chairman. Thank
Can we just
you.
wait till Councillor Knight gets to his place and is comfy? So, 61 Kings Road, please.
Thank you, Chairman. So first of all, I would like to draw members' attention to the addendum report, as additional representations have been received. This application is seeking planning permission and listed building consent for replacement of shopfront and alterations to site elevation. During the course of the application, the proposal has removed the external seating along Wellington Square from the proposal, and therefore external seating does not form part of this application. In addition, the change of use to a cafe does not require planning permission, given that the previous use falls within the same use class. So I'll just run through some of the slides. As you can see on the screen, this is the site location plan on the left and the area view, showing the application site, which is this corner building. And there are some photographs of the front elevation and the existing shop front. Some photos of the side elevation. You can see the existing shop front over here, the existing doors to the residential units above, and the existing door at the back over here. This is the proposed ground floor plan. A proposed front elevation on the left-hand side and the existing photograph on the right-hand side. Again, the proposed side elevation on the left and the existing photo on the right. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, we do have speakers on this application. So, for the objectors, Mr. Austin John, you're going to speak. You have 3 minutes, sir.
Good evening, members. Thank you for allowing me the time to speak today on behalf of the 30 or so objectors to this scheme. The officer's report outlines that there are two key issues, both related to conservation and heritage. These key issues do not account for the material impacts that will come about in use and activity terms as a result in the change in the proposed use of the premises. The proportion of non-retail uses in the frontage to Kings Road is already substantially in excess of the policy threshold. Approval of this application would worsen the position contrary to policy CF3. This is of particular concern, not least as the proposals, if approved, would result in two non-shop uses and premises being located either side of Wellington Square, a quiet listed residential square. The use of the side delivery door located off Wellington Square is of particular concern. The proposed use will require and result in a material change in the frequency and nature of deliveries than the occasional ones when operated as a hair salon. Occasional deliveries will be replaced by far more frequent ones with greater noise caused by the cages of goods trundling over the pavement and at more antisocial hours. The proximity of residential properties to this access point and the spill of activity into the residential street will be material and adverse. This will have a significant and negative impact on neighbouring amenity. This has already been accepted through the omission of the external seating area to the side of the premises. The concern over the intensification of the use of the side door extends to the undoubted use of the door for takeaway and home delivery services that the use will give rise to, for example, with motorcycles being parked on the pavement or in the residence parking spaces. Considering all of the above, we consider the application ought to be refused. If the view is that the proposals are acceptable, then any decision ought to be subject to a condition that ensures that the premises remains under use class EB for the sale of food and drink principally to visiting members of the public, where consumption of that food and drink is mostly undertaken on the premises. The imposition of such a condition would define that takeaway and the consumption of food off the premises cannot, under any circumstances, take place. In addition, we consider that any decision needs to be subject to a condition to prohibit any home deliveries, collection and distribution via the reopened side door in Wellington Square at all times, and to control and limit the timing of delivery activity. Limitations to not before 8 a.m. and not after 7 p.m. would be necessary and appropriate, not least given the residential setting that the premises sits within. To conclude, the development would have a number of adverse impacts, would compromise policy CF3, and would adversely impact neighbouring amenity. It is on this basis that there have been 30 or so public objectors. I therefore respectfully urge you to refuse the application, contrary to the recommendation of your officers, or as a minimum, tightly condition any approval. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chandler, for the applicant, you have 3 minutes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, committee members, this application was submitted on behalf of the owner for the planning permission and listed buildings consent for the replacement of the front shop elevation to the front and the side window and door, and a change of use from the health and beauty salon to the coffee shop. There are other internal alterations and the provision of outdoor seating inside. We've already subsequently reduced or omitted the external seating area from the application. The planning report prepared by the director and the planning officers set out the application parameters and concludes with a recommendation for granting planning permission and listed buildings consent subject to conditions. The proposals look to replace the modern shop front to Kings Road elevation with a more traditional timber shop front with low-level panelled store risers and a replacement entrance door to the right and replace glazing. The shop window to the Wellington Square elevation will also be replaced in a similar design. The traditional detailing will be a benefit to the special interest of the host building, which is Grade 2 listed. The alterations to the shop front will reflect commercial units along the Kings Road and will enhance the character and appearance of the conservation area and street scene. The existing side door to the property on the Wellington Square elevation will be replaced like for like and painted black to match existing. This will revert back to a secondary door to the shop. It is not only giving access to the ground floor, but to gives a additional access back from the lower ground floor in the case of emergency. We accept there are a number of objections. Each of the has been addressed and responded to in the planning officer's report. In conclusion, Mr. Chairman, the planning officers confirm that planning is not required for the use of the premises of the cafe. The provision of the external seating has been omitted, and the proposed replacement shop fronts to Kings Road and Wellington Square elevations will be of benefit of the interest of the Grade 2 listed host building and will enhance the character and appearance of the conservation area and street scene. Finally, Mr. Chairman, the planning officer's report recommends that the committee grants planning permission subject to conditions. I thank you for your time and the support of the officers which have helped us with this application, and trust that you will grant the permission as recommended. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now give the members an opportunity to ask questions of the speakers. Who would like to go first?
So, a question for the objectors. Your objections, do they relate to the appearance of the building, or are you primarily concerned with, say, traffic flows or litter? I just want to, just from the drawings, the appearance seems to be of a character not too dissimilar from the listed buildings. So could I just get your view on that?
Yeah, we're not objecting to the changes of the appearance so much as the change in the material change from a hair salon to a coffee shop. I mean, the impact from that would be materially different. I mean, you're getting your deliveries for the coffee shop perhaps at early hours of the morning compared to the material and activity use rather than the appearance.
Thank you.
Councillor Ali?
Just a quick question to the objector. You've mentioned if we were to grant this application, you would like to see a condition added to it. What condition do you have in mind to make sure that we take your views on board?
Yes, so we consider that the decision needs to be conditioned to prohibit any home delivery, collection and distribution via the reopened side door in Wellington Square at all times, and to control the limit and timing of delivery activity. For example, limit activity coming or deliveries coming to the site before 8 a.m. or after 7 p.m.
Thank you. Councillor Retty?
Thank you, Chairman. Just to follow up on my colleague to Mr. John, I understand your conditions that you proposed, I believe because I sit on licensing, could be enforceable on licensing. I don't think the change of use could be restricted by any planning conditions, as you can see from the summary report. A lot of objectives that concerns were really about the tables and chairs, but I don't believe that the planning those changes would come under planning, I believe, but I'll confirm with that with the officers anyway. But your main objection is about the traffic flow in this thing, as Councillor Lynn pointed out. It's not about the material change.
Well, we see it as a material change going from a hair salon to a coffee shop, and the activity use and so deliveries coming from that. The use perhaps maybe as deliveries. You know, you get your motorbikes parking up in the resident parking spaces around the corner, and the potential impacts from them using that.
Any more questions, please? Okay, questions to the officers. I think we've pretty well confirmed now, haven't we? Tables and chairs both at the front and the side have gone.
That's correct, yes.
And the class use has no problem with that at all, just to confirm those two.
Yeah.
Okay, so Councillor Raleigh.
The question of the delivery time, and again, Councillor Wright mentioned it's a licensing issue. Well, he sits in the licensing, and that's information he has. Is there anything we can do about it, or is it just we have to leave it to the licensing team? Is there any planning way of dealing with this issue?
So in terms of the use, they don't require planning permission to change from the hairdresser to a coffee shop. So I would really advise against putting any restrictions for delivery and use of that side door, because they can use it without planning permission. The only requirement would be for the listed building, because the existing door is already there, so they would only have to unblock it from inside. So officers' advice would be not to restrict any delivery.
Just follow up, Chair. Thank you. The condition can be attached, but your advice is, thank you, that's made very clear.
Any more questions?
Could we attach some kind of management plan as one of the conditions?
Yeah, again, if members think it's necessary and meets the test, in terms of attaching that condition, members can do it. But again, the change of use doesn't require planning permission. So you will have to be really clear and careful with the reason behind that condition. Why, for example, the coffee shop requires management condition and other uses within the same use class don't.
So clearly the issue here is that side, the key issue for the objectors is that side door, and if the coffee shop is going to be doing deliveries, I can well understand the concerns there, because we get it all along the King's Road. The deliverer will hang around there, they'll wait to be called forward for doing deliveries. So it will change that, it will change the end of that street. So are you saying there's nothing we can put in here that would legally hold itself, and maybe we can get an opinion from our legal officer here, that can help mitigate that? We've heard from the objectors that saying if we grant it, they would like some conditions on this. I think that's pretty reasonable, but is it legal?
Might just pass it to our legal officer.
Yeah, I agree with the officer's advice on that. I don't think I've had anything else to add on that. So.
Sorry, further to Chairman's question, are you saying automatically they're allowed to operate the coffee shop without even licensing, just because it's under Class E?
That's correct, yes.
without any change in timings, because the the current regulations would allow them to operate, I don't know, maybe
Yes.
24 hours or...
Yeah, so the use class E allows different uses within, for example, office, restaurant, retail, and they're all within the same use class, so it doesn't require planning permission. There are obviously restrictions on the licensing. They might have a different hours of operation, delivery within that regime, but not within planning.
No, but if you're saying it automatically granted to run a coffee shop, then technically they don't need a licensing. Then they can operate from 6 a.m. to, I don't know, 11 p.m.
Well, there's different restrictions in the licensing and planning. Sorry. Well, I'm not sure they would need anything from licensing for a coffee shop, but...
It's about the hours of operation and whether that would be covered by a licensing issue. Clearly, the issue we're trying to grapple with here is that the hours of operation, the use of that side door and the impact on residents. Those are the issues we're trying to grapple with here. We're trying to understand whether that would be a planning issue or a licensing issue or no issue. Help on that, please.
Do you mind if I come in here, Chair? I think what we need to be really crystal clear on is the fact that without planning permission, without coming to us to seek consent, the applicant could change permittedly through Class E. So it would be difficult for us to attach conditions that would be considered reasonable to restrict anything that they could do without planning permission. The fact that this application is before us is primarily dealing with the changes to the shopfront and the listed building consent. So I think we just need to be really mindful that that is really what we're making a decision on, and to append conditions to something that's outside of those remits of the application would be potentially unreasonable and not meet those tests of what a condition needs to be. So it may be that other aspects are covered by licensing, but we are making a decision based on the application that's in front of us today and on those merits alone.
Councillor Retty.
Sorry, Chairman, I have a request for you, Chairman. I mean, I don't know if you have the power to... Just for an understanding, I would like to know the hours of current operations and the proposed hours of operations, because obviously, as you heard from the the planning officer, is that we can't really link both ways because it's an automatic thing. So I would like to know if either from the applicant or the officers that we could know the hours of operations. That would be helpful.
Thank you. I'm just checking, actually, there might be hours of operation in the application form. So if you can just give me a couple of minutes.
Other questions while the officers are looking at that? Councillor Lane.
It was more of a clarification, Chairman, just in terms of the condition that the side door can't be used. To confirm, Ms. Ray, you said it was legally possible for us to impose it, but you wouldn't advise it. So just want to check that that was what you said. Thank you.
So as member aware, any condition needs to meet 6 tests, whether it's necessary, enforceable, reasonable, relevant to the development, etc. So it is within your planning judgment if you wish to put that condition, but you need to be really careful about the tests, whether they meet.
I'm afraid I can't do. Are you there with your information?
Sorry, I'm still going through.
Ms. Robinson, do you want to just comment on the issue around hours of operation?
I think it comes down to what is actually before members to make a decision on this evening, and the hours of operation aren't a factor in what's before you this evening. So I think it would be slightly erring on the side of caution to not append anything along those lines of what meets the tests of a condition if you were to impose something along opening hours. But again, that is at your discretion to add a condition if you so wished.
I mean, I think what is before us is something quite narrow this evening. It is primarily to do with the shop front and the design of that. That's the planning piece. The use of it, we've clarified it can be used for this purpose under the class, and the issues of hours of operation would be more of a licensing issue than it would be a planning issue.
If I may, Chairman, sorry, I've just found the hours of operation within the application form. So as per the application, the hours are proposed to be Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., Saturdays 9 till 6, and Sunday bank holidays 9 to 6.
So after 6 o'clock, they couldn't do takeaways or anything else, or they're not planning to?
They could, but it's not the intention to do so.
Just repeat those, please, so we're clear on them.
So it's Monday to Friday, 8 till 6, Saturday 9 till 6, and Sunday bank holiday 9 till 6.
Do you want to?
If members were minded, they could append a condition to add those opening hours if they saw fit. But again, it would be at your discretion to do that, and it may be that it doesn't meet the test, but it may be that the applicant is accepting of those conditions anyway.
Would anybody like to propose that?
Chair, I'm happy to propose that as a condition.
Councillor Retty is going to second it. Would all members, those in favour? Obviously nobody against, no abstentions on that. So it is recommended that the committee grant planning permission with the conditions listed in section 9 and the additional condition. Would those in favour please raise their hands? There's nobody against and no abstentions. That is carried. Thank you very much. Can we move then to Pennywern Road? And who is going to present this to us?
That's me again, Chairman. Thank you. So yes, this application is seeking retrospective planning permission for a single-story extension. I'm just going to run through some slides. So this is the site location plan and the area view. The red arrow points towards the site. This is the photograph prior to construction. As members can see, that there was a small extension on this level already. Hopefully you can see my cursor. Oh, actually. Then this is the site photograph showing the existing extension on the left and the right hand side. The proposed ground floor and roof plan. Proposed site elevations. And proposed re-elevation. The proposed extension is just over here. I would also like to draw members' attention to a previous planning permission from 2016. That permission was for a very similar extension. I just thought it would be quite helpful to just bring those plans for members' attention. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we do have a speaker on this evening, Councillor Linda Wade, who is objecting to the application. Councillor Wade, you have 3 minutes.
Earls Court welcomes good and well-managed businesses, so it's enormous concern that this retrospective application before us for an extension not being built in accordance with the planning consent. But more significant, the staircase, though not in this application, facilitates access and the use of the terrace by staff for recreation and breaks. So the steps on which they also sit cannot be viewed as being independent of this application, as both support the creation of noise nuisance and the impact of smoking on neighbours. In the permission granted in 2016, it specifically stated that the terrace should not be used for recreation. Again, that condition has been included in this application. The conditions attached to any permission granted must be enforceable. The business should demonstrate that it's executing that condition. Residents are concerned that the use of the terrace and the staircase inhibits good living conditions for neighbouring occupants. The use of terrace and stairs create overlooking of a bedroom and sitting rooms, making for consequential loss of privacy and reduces the quality of life for residents living in 23 to 27 Earls Court Square. Residents are also concerned about the prospect of salami slicing with a series of different applications such as the staircase, noisy plant, again in the wrong location, and the strong light at the rear of the building shining into bedrooms and habitable rooms, the latter being a subject to a separate enforcement notice. I would ask for the redrafting of Condition 5 to insert accessed via the door and external staircase, so because we don't know what it's going to look like. I would ask that there's a meeting with representatives of the Earls Court Square RA and neighbours and the hotel management to discuss a way forward and to stress on the applicant that the consultation is recommended before any further application is considered or submitted. It's essential that applicants should not come to rely on retrospective planning consent to protect them from enforcement and sanctions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. There is nobody to speak for the applicant, so we now have a chance to ask questions of Councillor Wade. Councillor Ali, I think you put your hand up first.
Thank you, and thank you for coming, Councillor Linda Wade. You've mentioned the condition. Again, it follows the theme that we have granted the last application. The condition that you've suggested is access by the door. Can you explain a bit more the condition that you would like to see this application to be attached?
Because the separation, because the plant is in the wrong place, the stairs have got an enforcement notice, the light has got an enforcement notice. The key issue here is that the staircase has to be included, because if they come forward with a revised design which incorporates a stair at the back of the building, that actually that's going to contribute to the generation of noise, congregation, people smoking, having their breaks, and it's because it does overlook sitting rooms and bedrooms and so impacts on people's lives.
Any other questions? Yes, Councillor Lane.
Thank you. Councillor Wade, looking at the pack, it appears that you're the lone objector. Is it true that residents are not generally concerned by this, or have they not objected because they were relying on you to put their objections for them?
I understand there are a number of submissions from people who lived in Queen's Court, and also the separate one by Lady called Freya. I think they're all concerned that this hotel, which has been done up in kind of over periods, has just not bothered to consult with them, has not listened to, they've tried to contact them to have a conversation about it. The staircase, which is a considerable problem, it's not fire compliant, but it does serve the terrace. So they don't want anybody using the terrace. It should only be used for maintenance. And at the moment, because we don't know when they're going to come forward, they've asked for the external staircase to be included in the condition.
We just remind the committee that we can only work on the application that's in front of us this evening, and while one understands concerns, we have to work on this application, not what might happen in the future. Any other questions of Councillor Wade? Can we move then to questions of the officers, please? And can you just clarify the issue of the staircase, please? Is is it part of this application or is it not part of this application?
No, thank you, Chairman. The staircase is not part of this application. I believe there's an ongoing enforcement investigation about the staircase, but it is not part of this application and is not shown on the proposed plans either. So it doesn't form part of this application.
What happens to the staircase, or that we've got to wait to the enforcement notice?
Yes, and our enforcement colleagues will investigate, and then if it was acceptable or not, they will invite the application to come forward for that element.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions for the officers, please? Councillor Lane.
Thank you, Chairman. It's a follow-up to my question to Councillor Wade. I note at the head of the pack it does say objections 1, and then later on in the pack there are clearly a lot of emails, people objecting. Why was that wrong? Can we get a number on how many people actually objected?
From the information in front of me, it's just one objection from the resident. There have other people been copied into those emails, but it counts as one objection from that resident.
Okay, yeah, fine.
Any more questions? Councillor Etty?
Thank you, Chair. So the previous application which was granted, is that elapsed, or is that why they put in a new one?
I should have said that before. So the previous application, they haven't built it in accordance with the approved plans, so they had to submit a new application with the revised drawings. That's the reason is retrospective.
Was that granted through delegated power or the panel? So.
I believe it was a committee.
Right, thank you.
From memory, yeah.
And perhaps an impossible question, but do we know why they didn't build it to the plans?
Unfortunately, I don't know.
Just a quick question. The condition the Councillor Linda Wade suggested, I think officers have already mentioned this cannot be included. Is there a way in the future that access by the door or the staircase can be looked at, and when will that report be published if it has an effect on this application?
Yeah, so while Councillor Wade was speaking, I did have a look at that condition 5. So it does say the roof of the lower ground floor extension, access via the door, shall not be used at any time at the terrace amenity space. There's nothing about the fire escape and nothing about the stairs, because that doesn't form part of this application. So on the new application, if it comes forward, we don't know from the enforcement investigation what's going to happen, then we can put conditions relevant to that element.
But just looking at that condition, and I guess there's a two parts to it, isn't it? So are we saying that condition cannot be used at any time for amenity space, or only when it's accessed through the door?
Access by the door, but there's no other access to that space except from the door.
So just to
but we can strengthen it if members think it's just no.
If the steps are approved, that would need to be then a separate condition on the approval of the steps, that it cannot be used for access to the terrace.
Yes, but this condition only restricts access to the amenities for amenity space or a terrace. It doesn't say about fire escape, because that is a different.
Yeah. Any questions? Okay, can we then move to a vote, please? And the recommendation in para 1.3, it is recommended the committee grants planning permission with the conditions listed in section 9 of this report. Would those in favour please raise their hands? Would those against please raise their hand? That is 1 against. That is carried. Thank you very much. Can we then now move on to 184 Earls Court Road, and Councillor Adrian, you're going to leave for this application. Okay, who is going to present this application?
Yes,
you are.
That's me again. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank
So first of all, I would like to draw members' attention to the addendum report. Additional condition is recommended, and also a few changes to condition 2 and 3. And in addition, if members would be minded to grant the permission, the proposal will require section 106 to ensure that the new residential unit would be permit-free. Therefore, we would like to amend recommendation as set out in the section 2 of the report to either grant the planning permission on the satisfactory completion of the undertaking on the agreement to secure permit-free, and with the condition listed in section 9, or refuse planning permission if the agreement is not being secured. So this application is seeking planning permission for an additional story to create a new residential studio flat and associated residential entrance door on the front elevation. Members can see a site location plan and the area view, on the screen. There we go. Then we've got the site photos on the top left. We've got the existing front elevation. The photograph on the right is the existing rear elevation, and the photograph at the bottom it shows the wider context of the site. This is the existing basement and existing ground floor floor. Then the proposed floor plan showing the proposed new entrance access to the studio flat above on the first floor. This slide shows the existing and proposed front elevations, existing and proposed rear elevations, and the existing and proposed cross sections. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we do have a speaker on this evening, Councillor Wade. You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
It's incomprehensible that the council should spend so much time, energy and money on investing in plans such as the Earls Court District Local Action Plan, the Hogarth Road Public Realm Improvement and the Earls Court Shopfront Guide to grant permission that would run contrary to these objectives, borough policy, and grant permission that would run borough policy CL8B points 1, 2 and 3, and in doing so actively undermine the attempts to improve Earls Court Road. I would contest and refute some of the content of paras 6.4 and 6.8 in the impact on context and character section of the report, and it would take longer than my 3 minutes to go through the detail why these are wrong, but please feel free to ask. Importantly, the paired single-storey retail developments on either side of Nevern Road, created in the 1870 street plan, forms a unique feature within Earls Court streetscape. The gaps give a sense of space. These 5 retail units should be valued for their design, historic value, and retained intact. Some essential points that must be raised. The plans of the proposed front elevation are wrong. The height of 186 Earls Court Road, which does not form a part of the same group of buildings as 182 to 184, now has an additional story. But the application roof height is consistent with the original design with 182, as well as the twin single-storey units north of Nevern Place. The CTMP and CMP must come back to committee. Why are we in one of the most densely populated wards in the country, and why we may need housing, this one studio unit does not offset the irreparable and irreversible damage that granting this application would have on the planned streetscape improvements. How it would be removing a unique detail from the streetscape would create precedent for others. This is an important decision, and I quote from RBKC Conservation Officer that in this case, this non-designated asset providing a positive contribution to the conservation area should be considered in this decision. I would also say that the applicant does not wish to engage in the frontage, despite the fact that they've inserted 2 new doors for the retail and the residential unit. I would ask this application to be refused.
Thank you. There is nobody to speak for the applicant, so members of the committee, would you like to ask any questions of Councillor Wade, please? Councillor Lane.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Wade, could you elaborate on your concerns regarding the impact on context and character of this proposal?
This is not about giving new information. Can you just clarify what your point is?
This is going to be visible from Earls Court Road, therefore it's going to impact. And if you see the pictures, you will see that you actually have a single-storey retail unit as designed in the 1870s, and this is unique to the area. When it says the proposed brickwork and architectural design would be in keeping with the terraced group and streetscape, I'm sorry, that is just wrong. The proposal is appropriate in the terms of form scale given the context of the terraced row. Well, you've got 2 buildings on the corner of Spear Mews, which were both built at the same time. You've got the one next door, which is 186, which was a unique building with unique brickwork and unique detail on it. Then you get the 2 single stories, and then on the other side of Nevern Road, you get 3, which are absolutely the same. So if you put another story on top of these single stories, you're actually creating the 2, you've got one lot, and then you've got another lot, and then you've got another lot. So you're increasing the staggered effect of the roof line. I think also the visual importance of the gap. People comment that you're walking down Earls Court Road and you suddenly see these gaps. You can see the gardens, you can see there's life beyond, and that's how it was originally designed. And I think that introducing another layer
I think you've
to
made
the staggered...
your point, Councillor Wade.
Right.
Can you just bring your answer to a close?
I've answered.
Bring your answer to a close. I think that's it.
I think is that, have I answered Councillor Lane's question? Yes. Thank you.
Any other questions for Councillor Wade? Okay, thank you. Questions for the officers now. Who would like to ask a question? Councillor Lane?
Just a follow-up question on the design and the heritage of the area. Do you think there is some merit in the point made by the objectors that these single-storey units as designed sort of give a sort of sense of, say, free space and prevent a sense of enclosure in the road, because they were designed as single-storey buildings when they were built?
Thank you, Councillor Lane. I thought actually bringing that area view might be quite helpful as we discuss in the context of the site. As you can see, there's quite a bit of variation between the heights of the buildings within this vicinity. This is the application site. Yes, we've got a single-storey building on the right and then double-storey on the left with more height further along. Our assessment, as you can see within the officer's report in paragraph 6.4 and 5, we were quite happy with in terms of the impact on the streetscape and the townscape as well. It is only a single-storey addition. There are conditions requiring better materials, timber windows, which will be in keeping with the area. So officers were satisfied with the context.
Thank you.
Just to follow up on that, it will change though, won't it? It will change the appearance of that designed row.
Yes, it will change it. It will add additional floor above the single story as you can see, but our assessment is not significantly higher than the other buildings. But it will change that additional.
Councillor Wade, thank you very much. You've had your opportunity. Thank you. Any other questions for the officers, please?
Sorry, just one further question, Chairman. I did note in the packet said that as a new residential unit will have to be secured as permit-free. It is a single studio. It's going to be similar to so many other single studios along that road that have permits. Do we have discretion as a planning committee to say, no, we'll let them have a parking permit, or is that something where our hands are tied, essentially?
Our policy is quite clear in terms of the new residential units. We always seek car-free development on any new residential. However, it is within your discretion to make that judgment.
Any other questions? Okay, then it's time for us to come to a decision, please. Para 1.2, it is recommended that the committee grants planning permission with the conditions listed in section 9 of this report, plus and you've seen the addendum and you've seen the addition to the wording there. So those in favour, please raise your hands.
Sorry, Chairman, and with the amended recommendation about the section 106.
Say that again, please.
The recommendations change from the officer's report to allow the director to seek the section 106 agreement for the parking free.
What the full recommendation is
Yes.
now, please.
So it is recommended the committee authorize the Director of Planning and Place to, 1, grant planning permission on the satisfactory completion on the undertaking or agreement to secure permit-free parking for the residential flat and with the conditions listed in section 9 of this report. 2, to refuse planning permission if the undertaking or agreement to secure permit-free parking for the residential flat has not been satisfactorily completed by 31st of May 2024 for the reasons that the proposed development would not be accompanied by associated necessary infrastructure improvement.
So, would those in favour of that recommendation please raise their hands? Would those against that recommendation please raise their hands? Can you put your microphone on, please?
I really would like to more clarify, because I've seen the section 106, the changes and the transportation, so further explanation will be needed. Maybe perhaps we should adjourn this one, but that's just for you.
So what we're saying is that the recommendation is as given on the paper plus what is contained in the addendum. Ms. Robertson, do you want to clarify?
Yeah, if I can clarify. So there's an omission in the report where we've put the wrong recommendation type in. So we're seeking to ensure you make the right decision on this application for us to go away and secure that legal agreement for the car parking. So all it is a clarification in updating that aspect of the report so we can delegate to officers to draw up that agreement and then make a decision. And then if we aren't able to secure that agreement by a certain date, we can refuse the application without having to come back to committee.
Please raise their hands. Would those against please raise their hand? That is carried. Thank you. We now move to the Old Downs studio. I've had a request for a comfort break, so we will have a comfort break of 5 minutes. Welcome back. We just have one more vote to take on this items of speakers, and that's agenda item S22, which is about granting listed building consent for the application on 61 Kings Road. So I refer you to that, that application and to the second part of that, and the recommendation is that the committee grants listing building consent with the conditions listed in section 2 of this report. Would all those in favour please raise their hands? Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. That is granted. We now move to the old dance studio, and who is going to present that, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Firstly, I'd like to draw members' attention to the addendum report. We received an additional objection and also wanted to edit one of the conditions on the listed building consent. Verbally, we would just also like to edit condition 7 in the officer report, just to delete the last sentence from the words "a post-installation."
Could you, for my benefit, just clarify the difference between the previous application and this application? And I realise it's primarily around the roof lights.
Yes, exactly that, Chairman. So previous applications have seen lots of roof lights approved, a permission then lapsed. They then came back again for lots of roof lights again, which was met with fierce objections from neighbours and subsequently refused. They went away again and tried to resolve that by reducing the amount of glazing further, but still neighbours were very concerned about it, and it was refused again. So they've now taken that on board, and now we have, when compared to the existing site situation, a very comparable, if not near identical scheme. So there won't be lots of openings. The plant equipment, there's existing plant on the side of the property, so there's a new plant going in with an acoustic enclosure and 2 small infill extensions that were previously considered, and there was no objection to them, no reason for refusal. And there's also lots of internal changes because of the listed building consent that require our consent from you. But our Conservation and Heritage team are more than happy with those changes, given their nature and scale.
Okay, thank you very much. Would anybody like to ask any questions on that? In which case, no questions. In which case, then we go to a vote. Para 1.2, 2 votes on this. Para 1.2 is recommended the committee grant planning permission with the conditions listed in section 9 of this report. Would all those in favour please raise their hands? Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. That is granted. We then move to the second decision of that, which is about listed building consent, and it is recommended the committee grants listed building consent for the reasons set out in section 2. Would those in favour please raise their hands? Anybody against? Any abstentions? That is carried. Thank you very much. Can we now move to Scarsdale Villas, please? Who's going to present that?
That's myself again. Thank you, Chairman. Again, draw members' attention to the addendum report. We've received a further objection and some letters of support, and also some correspondence from the applicant we've shared with you. Here, planning permission is sought for a new basement under a terrace and extension. Importantly, the extension, as you can see in the drawings, has already been approved, and that, that's material to this decision. The basement isn't under the main house, only the rear extension and part of the rear garden, and officers are satisfied it fully complies with CL7 in all respects. So we are recommending approval. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you just ask a question which we always ask on this because it's been brought up? The double basement issue. This is a lower ground floor which doesn't count as a basement, so this is a single story basement.
Yes, absolutely. And I've actually just triple checked all the calculations for you. So the existing lower ground floor, the existing height is about 2.5 metres, and it's being increased by about 500 mil, so to 3 metres head height. The basement then has an internal head height of between 2.4 and 3.2 metres. So it's actually quite conservative in terms of the basements that we see, because our policy generally allows for 3 to 4 metres in height. There's absolutely no way, looking at section BB in your plan pack, that it could be subdivided to create 2 storeys of basement.
Thank you very much for that clarification. Any questions for the officers, please? If there are no questions, then we can go to make a decision. Paragraph 1.3, it is recommended that the committee grants planning permission with the conditions listed in section 9 of this report. All those in favour, please raise their hand. Any abstentions? Anybody against? That is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. And finally, All Saints Catholic College.
And that's me again, Chairman. So the only reason this one is before you this evening is because RBKC are the applicant. Primarily, there's this application makes lots of changes to the college, but they are quite minor, apart from a big 3-storey block you'll see on the drawings that will create 6 new classrooms. It's a sensitive design, sort of in the centre of the site, designed to keep away from near residential neighbours, and officers are satisfied there'll be no impact on living conditions, and the character and appearance will be preserved. So we conclude, we recommend approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions of the officers? No questions, then can we move to a vote, please? Para 1.2. It is recommended that the committee grants planning permission with the conditions listed in section 9 of this report. All those in favour, please raise their hands. No abstentions, nobody voting against. Thank you very much. That is granted. Thank you. And that concludes our business for this evening. Thank you very much indeed, members. Good night.